everybody, welcome to another episode of Bird Calls. I'm David Grubb, and we're talking about the disappointing start to the season for the New Orleans Pelicans. They're back home tonight for the first game of a 4-game homestand against the Indiana Pacers, so let's go ahead and get into this. The Pelicans have already announced that Herb Jones and CJ McCollum will sit this game out tonight. Daniel Tice, Yves Missi, and Jordan Hawkins are likely game time decisions, so it doesn't feel like the Pelicans have great odds to win and snap their current 3-game losing streak. It's tempting to pin the Pelicans' recent losses on missing players. They've also had DeJounte Murray out, of course, and Trey Murphy III since the beginning of the season. But here's the reality. It's deeper than that. Wednesday night's game should have reiterated something that's crystal clear already. This team hasn't fully bought in to its offensive philosophy. And while the Warriors stuck to their game plan even without key players, the Pelicans fell flat. The question here isn't just about X's and O's, it's about pride. With their top 3 players active for 3 games on the road trip and their top 2 available for all 4, the Pelicans were still outplayed by the Blazers and Warriors, who were quicker, more aggressive, and more connected. They are an unlikely fourth quarter comeback and a Brandon Ingram jumper away from being 1-4. As much as it is on the players, it starts with head coach Willie Green. He didn't make the adjustments needed to keep things competitive in those games, whether it was getting his players to get into their sets quicker, take the right shots, or just play with some intensity. The Pelicans are not getting it done. If in year 4 your team has no identity other than let's play hard, you cannot get any further than how far your talent can carry you. The Pelicans were outplayed by the Blazers, and Green was tremendously outcoached against the Warriors. We got to talk about the stars, Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram. And look, while they are scoring, they are not playing like a true elite duo. The season's been much like the last 5, individually talented, but not quite complementing each other. Zion plays his best surrounded by shooters, but the Pelicans haven't built a roster to support that. His limited offensive repertoire and turnover rate can be very problematic, as we saw with his 7 turnovers against the Warriors on Tuesday night. When the defense gets to build a wall because there are no shooters around him, Zion struggles to make shots. The Pelicans are essentially telling/allowing him to just put his head down and bull rush into the defense. It reminds me of Kobe Bryant when he was discussing how to defend James Harden and why the Rockets were never going to win a championship with Harden dominating the ball from the center of the court. It's a style that can work against bad teams or if you have an overwhelming advantage with Zion against his opponent. But it gets easier to defend in critical situations. Point Zion was never supposed to be the offense. It was supposed to be a feature of the offense, something that you utilize in an advantageous situation. The Pelicans don't ever get Zion the ball when he's already in motion. He's not natural in the post, but they insist on using traditional post-up sets for him. Zion also has to learn how to take an open three-pointer. In 2 games against the Pelicans, Draymond Green, a career 32% shooter from deep, made 4 of his 8 three-point attempts. Zion has taken 4 threes this season. He absolutely positively has to get to the point where he's shooting 3 triples a game. I don't worry as much about his mid-range game, but he has to be a threat from long distance. Even a miss is an opportunity. He can get an offensive rebound. He can get to the foul line. Somebody else can get to the foul line, but they're not even doing that. Ingram, on the other hand, has been taking more threes this season, but he reverts to mid-range shots in clutch situations. Plus, he's not getting to the basket. His free throw attempts are at a career low per game. And then the honest truth is that Brandon can be passive-aggressive on the court and just check out of the offense entirely. He did it on Wednesday when he took fewer shots than Jose Alvarado. There's no way, there's no game circumstance that should ever happen. But it did, and we've seen it before. Last season, Brandon had 13 games where he took 11 shots or less, and only in 2 of those did he play less than 30 minutes. The Pelicans went 7-6 in those games. His lack of aggression at times can just be ridiculous. And I said this the other night to the guys at Boot Crew Media, and I'll say it again now. No one is asking Brandon Ingram to change who he is as a basketball player. The Pelicans, myself, and a number of fans are just asking Brandon Ingram to play like he did for Alvin Gentry and Stan Van Gundy. Now, because of all the people who now consider Brandon the cornerstone of the franchise, and that's fine. It's an opinion, and you can have that opinion. But they do so largely because of what they saw out of Brandon during those first 2 seasons when he won Most Improved Player and earned an All-Star bid. So why did Brandon choose to start playing slower basketball? It hasn't gotten him more All-Star berths. It hasn't gotten him his contract extension that he's seeking. It hasn't made the team better. He is essentially playing whatever music he likes at the party, whether you want to dance to it or not. What the Pelicans have is a player in Zion Williamson who has not figured out how to adapt and a player in Brandon Ingram who chooses not to. Last season, the Pelicans were only 2 points better per 100 possessions with the two of them on the court. Those numbers have nosedived through their 4 games together this season. I was in a marriage that failed. Look, I got divorced a few years ago, and I could truthfully say that even at its worst, there were good times in my marriage, times where my ex-wife and I could laugh together and have a spark that we used to have. But ultimately, it wasn't going to work. Neither one of us was ever going to be happy or the best version of ourselves with the other one. It's time for Brandon and Zion to get a divorce. For the Pelicans to really compete, both need to show up as leaders, not just scorers. And it's clear that neither Zion Williamson nor Brandon Ingram is the leader of this team. I'm sure that their teammates respect their talent. But what about either of them shows you the willingness to be accountable for the ultimate success or failure of this franchise? The tandem is broken. And if the Pelicans want to move forward, they have to move on from a duo that has produced a combined 2 playoff wins, not series wins, just 2 games in 5 years. The Pelicans have also touted their depth for a while now, but it hasn't been there in the last couple of games. Yves Missi has been impressive for a rookie, but beyond him, the second unit lacks size and strength on the boards. Javonte Green works hard, but his offense hasn't been there, especially in half-court sets. Jordan Hawkins got off to a great start, but he's gone cold in the last few games. He's shooting below 38% overall and 32% from deep over the last 3 games. And the defense and on defense, teams are just hunting him. Jose Alvarado is a change of pace, matchup-dependent third guard being pressed into duty as a top-of-the-rotation player. Where the Pelicans struggle, it's in those bench units. The Warriors and Blazers, their benches played with purpose, and they fit perfectly into the game plans of their coaches. The Pelicans' second unit struggles with consistency and cohesion. That's a major red flag for a team hoping to compete in a very deep Western Conference. Honestly, the roster is flawed in a big way, as it has been each and every season for the past 6 years. The front office has failed the coach and the players in that regard. But the reality is nothing's going to change there. No one's getting fired in the front office this season. Whatever change the Pelicans make is either going to be to the coaching staff or changes to the roster. Or if things keep going as they have, probably both. So who are the New Orleans Pelicans? Right now, it's really hard to say. They'll win games because they have a talented enough roster. But without a clear identity and consistent play, meaningful success will remain out of reach for this franchise. Something has to change, and fast. The Pelicans shouldn't need everyone to be healthy to define who they are. It's time for this team to figure out an identity, make the most of its talents, and decide what kind of team they ultimately want to be. All right, that's going to wrap up this brief episode of the Bird Calls. If you have thoughts on the Pelicans, you can hit me up on social media. You could drop a comment below. You know how to get me at DM Grub or at the Bird Rights. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be at the game tonight, and we'll catch you next time right here on the Bird Calls. Everybody. So until the next time, let's go Pels.